The Void Reaper moved through space like death itself. The massive ship stretched for miles, its black hull covered with the bones of 1,000 different species. Each bone told a story of conquest. Each skull marked another world that had fallen. To the Zephyrian hegemony, Admiral Kethfer stood on the bridge, his forearms crossed behind his back. His purple skin gleamed under the ship's dim lights. 3 yellow eyes watched the stars ahead. He'd done this dance many times before. Find a new world. Show them the Void Reaper. Watch them surrender. It always worked the same way. Would see his ship and panic. They would send their leaders to beg for mercy. They would offer him gold, slaves, anything to save their miserable lives. Then Kethfer would decide if they were worth keeping alive, or if their world was better. Off empty. Today's target was different, though. The signals from this planet were strange. The creatures there seemed to talk to each other across vast distances, using invisible waves. They had sent metal objects beyond their own world. Some of their signals even reached other planets in their system. Admiral, his second-on-command, spoke from behind him. "We are close to the target world now." Kethfer turned his massive head. "Good. Begin the fear protocol. Show them what happens to worlds that refuse our generous offer of protection." Crew moved quickly. They had done this hundreds of times. Giant screens around the ship began showing images of dead worlds. Cities burned to ash. Oceans turned to glass. Mountains split in half by weapons that could crack planets. Like eggs. The ship's computer found the strongest signals from the blue world ahead. It began sending the fear protocol directly to their communications networks. Soon, every creature on that planet would see what the Zephyrian hegemony could do. Kethfer smiled, showing teeth like broken glass. Now we wait for them to come crawling to us, begging for their lives. But something was wrong. Hours passed, and no desperate messages came from the planet. No ships raced toward them carrying frightened leaders. The blue world stayed quiet, except for its normal chatter of daily life. Admiral, the communications officer, called out, "I am picking up a small ship approaching our position." Kethfer's 3 eyes focused on the main screen. A tiny vessel moved toward them. It was so small that the Void Reaper could crush it without even slowing down. The ship looked peaceful, with no visible weapons. Its white hull was marked with strange symbols and the word curiosity in several languages. Only one ship? Kethfer asked, "Where are their leaders? Where are their armies?" "Sir, this appears to be their only response to our arrival." The Admiral felt confused. Every other species had sent fleets of ships when they saw the Void Reaper. Even the weakest civilizations managed to gather their military forces for one last, desperate fight. But these creatures sent only one tiny research vessel. "Perhaps they are too primitive to understand the threat," suggested the weapons officer. "Should we destroy their small ship as an example?" Kethfer studied the approaching vessel. Something felt different about this situation. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen such a calm response to the Void Reaper's arrival. He decided, let them come close. I want to hear what they have to say. The small human ship stopped just outside the Void Reaper's weapon range. A signal came from the vessel, and the face of a creature appeared on the main screen. It had pale skin, dark hair, and only 2 eyes. The creature looked directly at Kethfer without any sign of fear. "Hello there," the creature said in a pleasant voice. "My name is Dr. Sarah Chen. I'm a xenobiologist from Earth's Deep Space Research Division. I was conducting studies on stellar formation when our sensors detected your arrival. This is absolutely fascinating. We've never encountered a vessel of your design before." Kethfer stared at the screen. This was not how first contact was supposed to go. Where was the terror? Where were the pleas for mercy? This Dr. Chen creature spoke as if meeting a galaxy-conquering dreadnought was just another day at work. "You ... You are not afraid?" Kethfer asked, his voice full of confusion. Dr. Chen tilted her head slightly. "Afraid? Why would I be afraid? This is exactly the kind of discovery every xenobiologist dreams about. A new species, advanced technology, and what appears to be a highly sophisticated spacefaring civilization. I have so many questions I hardly know where to start." The bridge of the Void Reaper fell silent. Even the usual sounds of the ship's systems seemed muted. Kethfer's crew looked at each other with growing unease. This was not normal. This was not how things were supposed to happen. "Did you not receive our fear protocol?" Kethfer demanded. "Did you not see the images of worlds we have destroyed?" "Oh yes, we received your transmissions," Dr. Chen replied cheerfully. "Quite impressive technology, actually. The image quality was remarkable, though I have to say, some of those scenes were rather disturbing. I hope those were historical records, and not recent events. But putting that aside, I'm much more interested in learning about your species. What kind of atmosphere do you breathe? What's your homeworld like? How long have you been traveling between stars?" Kethfer felt something he had not experienced in decades of conquest. He felt uncertain. This small creature in her tiny ship was treating the most feared weapon in the galaxy like an interesting research subject. She spoke to him as if they were colleagues meeting at some academic conference. The Admiral's 3 eyes narrowed as he tried to understand what was happening. Was this some kind of trap? Was the human creature insane? Or was there something about these Earth beings that he did not understand? Whatever the answer was, Kethfer realized that this conquest would not go according to plan. Admiral Kethfer decided to try again. Now, this human creature clearly did not understand the situation. He would make it very clear what would happen if Earth refused to surrender. "Dr. Chen," he said, making his voice as threatening as possible, "you will now witness the true power of the Zephyrian hegemony. Watch and learn why every civilized world in this galaxy bows before us." The Void Reaper's main display came alive with holographic images. First came the burning cities of Korvax, Prime, where millions had died in the first hour of bombardment. Then the crystal forests of Zarian turned to dust by quantum disruptors. One by one, the images showed the fate of worlds that had dared to resist. Kethfer watched Dr. Chen's face carefully, waiting for the terror to appear. But instead of fear, he saw something else entirely. The human was leaning forward, studying each image with intense interest. "Remarkable," Dr. Chen said softly. "The architectural styles are completely different from anything we've seen. Look at that vegetation structure on the 4th planet. Those aren't carbon-based life forms, are they? The way they crystallize suggests silicon-based biology. How fascinating." Kethfer's jaw dropped open. She was analyzing the conquered species like they were museum exhibits. "Those are dead civilizations," he growled. "Worlds that refused our generous offer of protection. This will be Earth's fate if you do not surrender immediately." "Oh my." Dr. Chen replied, her voice full of concern. "That's truly tragic. So much knowledge lost. Did any of the population survive? Even small groups would be invaluable for understanding how different species adapt to conquest trauma. We've done extensive studies on survival psychology, and I'd love to compare notes." The bridge crew of the Void Reaper looked at each other in confusion. Her psychological warfare had never failed. Before, the fear protocol was designed by experts who had studied hundreds of different species. It should have broken this human's mind within minutes. Kethfer tried a different approach. "Perhaps you do not understand our weapons. Allow me to demonstrate." He gestured to his weapons officer. "Target their moon. Prepare the planet cracker missiles." Dr. Chen's eyes widened, but not with fear. "Oh, please don't do that," she said quickly. "Our moon controls the tides on Earth. If you damage it, you'll disrupt ocean currents and harm millions of marine species. We've got some beautiful coral reefs that took thousands of years to develop." She paused for a moment, then brightened. "If you want to demonstrate your weapons, might I suggest those asteroids about 3 million kilometers to your left? They're just rocks and ice. No ecological value at all. Actually, that would give us excellent data on your propulsion and targeting systems. Would you mind if I take some readings while you do it?" Kethfer stared at the screen. This human was asking him to move his weapons test to a more convenient location. She was treating his planet-cracking demonstration like a scientific experiment that she wanted to observe. "You are not taking this seriously," he said, his voice rising with frustration. "I am offering you one chance to surrender before we destroy your entire world." "I'm taking it very seriously," Dr. Chen assured him. "But honestly, I'm much more interested in learning about your species than discussing politics. Your ship design is absolutely incredible. Is that a controlled fusion reactor I'm detecting? And what kind of propulsion system can move something that large? The energy requirements must be enormous. The Admiral's three eyes narrowed. Our technology is beyond your understanding, primitive creature. Oh, I'm sure it is, Dr. Chen agreed cheerfully. That's what makes it so exciting. We've only been working with faster-than-light travel for about 50 years now. Your ship looks like it's been designed by a civilization with thousands of years of experience. The engineering must be spectacular. Kethfer felt a cold chill run down his spine. 50 years of faster-than-light travel? That was impossible. His intelligence report said this was a primitive world that had barely escaped its own atmosphere. You lie, he said. Our scouts observed your world. You are barely spacefaring. Dr. Chen looked puzzled. When was your last survey? We've had colonies beyond our solar system since 2157. Nothing too impressive by your standards, I'm sure. But we've got research stations around 12 different stars now. Mostly scientific outposts, but some of them are getting pretty big. The bridge of the Void Reaper fell completely silent. Kethfer's crew stared at their instruments, trying to process this information. If the humans had colonies around 12 stars, where were their defensive fleets? Where were their military vessels? Why did you send only one ship to meet us? Kethfer demanded. Well, I happened to be in the area doing research, Dr. Chen explained. When we detected your vessel, Earth Command figured it would be rude not to say hello. They asked for volunteers, and I jumped at the chance. First contact with a new species is incredibly rare. I couldn't pass up an opportunity like this. You volunteered? Kethfer asked weakly. Of course, this is the most exciting thing that's happened in my career. I mean, we've met a few other species out there, but most of them are pretty similar to us biologically. You appear to be completely different. 4 arms, 3 eyes, that beautiful purple coloration. Your species must have evolved under completely different conditions than ours. Kethfer's mind raced. She had said they had met other species, multiple species. This was supposed to be first contact, but the humans were treating it like just another diplomatic meeting. How many other species have you encountered? He asked carefully. Dr. Chen thought for a moment. Let's see, there's the Altarians. Of course, they're the ones who taught us how to build better jump drives. Then the Centauri Republic helped us with our agricultural problems on Kepler 442b. The Tau SETI Collective has been wonderful for cultural exchange, and we just signed a research partnership with the Epsilon Eridani Federation last month. Each name hit Kethfer like a physical blow. The Altarians had refused to join the hegemony and disappeared into deep space decades ago. The Centauri Republic was supposed to be extinct. The Tau SETI Collective had never been located by Zephyrian. Scouts Dr. Chen continued talking, completely unaware of the effect her words were having. I should probably mention that I need to head back to Earth soon. I promised my daughter I'd be home for her school play next week, and Sarah never forgives me when I miss the important stuff. Kethfer realized with growing horror that this human was not Earth's greatest warrior or their most important diplomat. She was just a scientist who happened to be nearby when his ship arrived. Scientist who was planning to go home to watch her child perform in a school play. If Earth was confident enough to send a single researcher to greet the most feared ship in the galaxy, what kind of power did they actually possess? Admiral Kethfer paced back and forth on the bridge of the Void Reaper. His forearms moved in nervous patterns as he tried to understand what was happening. For 3 hours now, he had been talking with Dr. Chen, and nothing was going according to plan. The human seemed completely immune to fear. Every threat he made was met with polite interest or scientific curiosity. When he described the terrible weapons that could split planets in half, she asked about the physics behind them. When he showed her images of conquered worlds, she wanted to know about the survivors and their adaptation methods. Dr. Chen Kethfer said, trying once more to establish proper protocol, "You must understand the seriousness of this situation. The Zephyrian hegemony controls over 400 star systems. We have weapons that can destroy entire civilizations. Your world stands no chance against our might. Dr. Chen nodded thoughtfully. 400 systems is quite impressive. The logistics alone must be incredibly complex. How do you maintain communication across such distances? We've found that even with quantum entanglement networks, coordination becomes difficult beyond about 20 light years. Kethfer stopped pacing. You have quantum entanglement networks? Oh yes, though ours are pretty basic compared to what you must have. We borrowed the initial designs from the Vegan Confederation about 30 years ago. They're much better at that sort of thing than we are. Humans tend to focus more on biological and cultural studies. Another unknown civilization. Kethfer felt his confidence slipping further. The Vegan Confederation. Lovely people. Well, not exactly people, but you know what I mean. They're more like living crystals that think in mathematical patterns. Completely different from carbon-based life, but their technology is amazing. They helped us solve some nasty pollution problems on our industrial worlds. Dr. Chen's casual mention of industrial worlds hit Kethfer like a cold wave. How many worlds did these humans control? His intelligence reports had said Earth was their only planet. How many worlds does your species inhabit? He asked carefully. Inhabited worlds? Let me think. Dr. Chen counted on her fingers. Got full colonies on about 40 planets now, though most of them are pretty small, maybe 1 million people each. Then there are the research stations, mining operations, and terraforming projects, probably close to 200 locations where humans live and work. The bridge crew of the Void Reaper exchanged worried glances. 200 locations meant the humans had spread across a significant portion of the galaxy. More importantly, they had done it without the Zephyrians noticing. Our scouts never detected these colonies, Kethfer said suspiciously. Dr. Chen looked surprised. Really? That's odd. We're not exactly hiding. Though I suppose if you weren't looking in the right places, you might miss us. Most of our settlements are in systems that don't have much strategic value. We prefer planets that are good for research or agriculture, not military bases. She paused and tilted her head thoughtfully. Actually, that brings up an interesting question. What kind of planets do you prefer for colonization? Your physiology suggests you evolved on a world with different atmospheric conditions than ours. Kethfer ignored her question. His mind was racing through the implications of what she had told him. The humans had colonies, terraforming projects, and research stations scattered across hundreds of star systems. They had alliances with multiple alien civilizations that the Zephyrians had never encountered or had written off as extinct. Most disturbing of all, they had accomplished this expansion while remaining completely off the hegemony's radar. Either the humans were incredibly good at hiding their activities, or they were so confident in their defenses that they did not bother to hide at all. Tell me about your military forces, Kethfer demanded. Dr. Chen looked confused. Military forces? We have planetary defense systems, of course. And the colony ships have basic protection against pirates and space debris. But we don't really maintain large military fleets. Most conflicts get resolved through negotiation or economic pressure. You have no armies? No battle fleets? Oh, we have some, Dr. Chen said with a shrug. The Colonial Defense Force keeps a few squadrons around the outer settlements, and Earth maintains the home fleet for protecting the core systems. But honestly, we haven't had a real war in over a century. Most species we meet are pretty reasonable. Once you get to know them, Kethfer felt a chill of pure terror. The humans spoke of military forces like they were an afterthought. They had expanded across hundreds of star systems without feeling the need for massive armies or weapons of conquest. They treated war as an outdated concept that reasonable beings had moved beyond. What about the species that are not reasonable? He asked, what do you do when diplomacy fails? Dr. Chen's expression grew serious for the first time since their conversation began. That's very rare, but it does happen sometimes. When we encounter truly aggressive civilizations that won't listen to reason, we usually call in the peacekeepers. Peacekeepers. It's a joint military force run by several allied species. Humans, Altarians, the Centauri Republic, a few others. They handle situations that require ... stronger responses. Like I said, that's extremely rare. Most conflicts can be resolved through other means. Kethfer realized that his worst fears were coming true. The humans were not just a single, isolated world. They were part of a vast alliance of species that the Zephyrians had somehow never detected. An alliance powerful enough to maintain peace across hundreds of star systems. Dr. Chen, he said slowly, what would happen if someone attacked one of your colonies? Human scientists looked genuinely puzzled by the question. Attacked? Why would anyone do that? I suppose the local defense systems would respond first. Then the Colonial Defense Force would investigate. If it was serious enough, they might call in the peacekeepers. She paused and studied Kethfer's face with growing concern. You're not planning to attack anyone, are you? Because that would be terribly unfortunate. There's so much we could learn from each other through peaceful contact. Kethfer stared at her through the screen. This human was worried about him. She was concerned that he might do something that would force her people to defend themselves. She spoke as if the idea of attacking human colonies was not threatening, but simply sad and wasteful. The Admiral began to understand something that filled him with cold dread. Dr. Chen was not afraid of the Void Reaper because she had no reason to be afraid. Earth had not sent their best diplomat or their greatest warrior to meet him. They had sent a scientist who happened to be in the neighborhood because they genuinely did not see his ship as a threat worth mobilizing against. If a single research vessel was all they thought necessary to handle the most feared weapon in the galaxy, what kind of forces could they deploy if they actually felt threatened? Admiral Kethfer felt sweat forming on his purple skin despite the cool air of the bridge. He had commanded the Void Reaper for 20 years and conquered dozens of worlds. But he had never felt this confused and frightened. Every question he asked Dr. Chen only made things worse. Dr. Chen, he said, trying to keep his voice steady, I need to understand something. Why do you conquer other worlds? The human looked genuinely puzzled. Conquer? We don't conquer worlds. Why would we do that? For resources, for strategic positions, for slaves and tribute. The same reasons every civilized species expands their territory. Dr. Chen shook her head slowly. That seems terribly inefficient. If you need resources, it's much easier to trade for them or develop artificial alternatives. As for strategic positions, we've found that having friends scattered across the galaxy works much better than trying to control territory through force. She leaned forward with interest. Is that why you travel around in such a heavily armed ship? Are you looking for resources to steal from other species? Kethfer felt his 3 eyes widen. She had just called the most feared weapon in the galaxy a tool for stealing. We do not steal, he said angrily. We offer protection to weaker species in exchange for reasonable tribute. Oh, protection from what? The question hung in the air, like a weapon. Kethfer opened his mouth to answer, then closed it again. Protection from what, indeed? The Zephyrian hegemony was the greatest military threat in this part of the galaxy. They were the ones that other species needed protection from. From other hostile civilizations, he said. Finally, Dr. Chen nodded thoughtfully. That makes sense, I suppose. Though in our experience, most species become much less hostile when you offer them genuine friendship and mutual benefit. We've found that trade partnerships work much better than protection rackets. Protection rackets. Kethfer's voice rose to a dangerous pitch. Sorry, that's probably not the right term. But from what you're describing, it sounds like you demand payment from other species in exchange for not attacking them. We have a word for that kind of arrangement. Dr. Chen did not say the word, but Kethfer could hear it anyway. Extortion. The humans saw the mighty Zephyrian hegemony as common criminals who threatened weaker species for money. We are not criminals, he growled. We bring order to the galaxy. We unite scattered worlds under a single banner of peace and prosperity. I'm sure your intentions are good, Dr. Chen said diplomatically. But have you considered that there might be better ways to achieve those goals? The Democratic Council has been very successful at maintaining peace through voluntary cooperation, another unknown organization. Kethfer felt a vein throbbing in his forehead. What is this Democratic Council? Oh, it's a loose alliance of about 200 species that work together on issues affecting the galaxy. Trade disputes, environmental protection, scientific research, that sort of thing. Each species gets to vote on major decisions, and membership is completely voluntary. Dr. Chen smiled warmly. Actually, if you're interested in bringing peace and prosperity to the galaxy, you should consider joining. Your people obviously have impressive technology and organizational skills. You could make a real difference. Kethver stared at her in complete shock. This human was inviting the Zephyrian hegemony to join some kind of galactic democracy. She was treating his empire of conquest like a potential new member of a peaceful alliance. "You want us to join your council?" he asked weakly. "Well, you'd have to stop the whole conquest thing first," Dr. Chen said matter-of-factly. "The council has pretty strict rules about members attacking each other or enslaving other species. But once you transitioned to a more cooperative approach, I'm sure you'd be welcomed with open arms." The Admiral felt the deck spinning beneath his feet. The humans were not afraid of the Zephyrian hegemony. They saw it as a backward civilization that could be reformed and integrated into their peaceful galactic community. "Dr. Chen," he said carefully, "what would this democratic council do if a member species was attacked by an outside force?" "That's covered in Article 12 of the Charter," she replied cheerfully. "All member species pledge to defend each other against unprovoked aggression. It's never actually been invoked, since most civilizations prefer to talk rather than fight. But the commitment is there." Kethver felt his blood turn to ice. 200 species pledged to mutual defense. The Altarians with their advanced technology, the Centauri Republic with their mysterious disappearing act. Dozens of other civilizations that the Zephyrians had never even detected. "How many ships could this council deploy if needed?" he asked Dr. Chen shrugged. "I honestly don't know. Military planning isn't really my area of expertise, but between 200 species? Probably quite a few, if the situation was serious enough." She paused and looked at him with growing concern. "Admiral, you're not thinking of attacking any council members, are you? Because that would be a terrible mistake." The military response, "but because it would destroy any chance of peaceful contact between our civilizations." Kethver realized that Dr. Chen was trying to save him from making a fatal error. She was not threatening him with the power of 200 allied species. She was warning him like a teacher trying to keep a student from walking into traffic. "Dr. Chen," he said slowly, "what would happen if someone attacked Earth specifically?" The human scientist looked sad. "Well, Earth is the founding member of the Council and home to about 12 billion people. An attack on Earth would probably trigger the full mutual defense clause. Every member species would be obligated to respond." She shook her head regretfully. "It would be the largest military mobilization in galactic history. Hundreds of thousands of ships, maybe millions. The economic disruption alone would be catastrophic. Plus, all the scientific research that would have to be abandoned while everyone dealt with the crisis." Dr. Chen looked directly at Kethver through the screen. "I really hope no one is foolish enough to try something like that. The waste would be absolutely heartbreaking." The Admiral stood frozen on his bridge, finally understanding the true situation. Earth had not sent Dr. Chen because they were weak or unprepared. They had sent her because they were so powerful, so confident in their defenses, that they could afford to treat his arrival as a scientific opportunity rather than a military threat. The Void Reaper, the most feared weapon in Zephyrian space, was nothing more than an interesting curiosity to a civilization that commanded the loyalty of 200 allied species. Dr. Chen was not brave for facing him alone. She was simply well informed about the forces that would respond if anything happened to her. Kethver finally understood why no desperate messages had come from Earth when his ship arrived. The humans were not preparing for invasion because they already knew they could not be successfully invaded. They were preparing for scientific discovery because that was how they approached everything in their peaceful, confident universe, and now he had to decide what to do with that knowledge. Admiral Kethver stood in the center of his bridge, surrounded by his confused crew. The conversation with Dr. Chen had lasted 6 hours, and every minute had made him more aware of how badly he had misjudged the situation. The humans were not a primitive species waiting to be conquered. They were part of something much larger and more powerful than the Zephyrian hegemony had ever imagined. Admiral, his communications officer said quietly, Dr. Chen is requesting permission to take detailed scans of our ship. She says it would help her write a better first contact report. Kethver almost laughed. After everything that had happened, the human scientist still wanted to study his vessel. She was treating the entire encounter like a research project that she would present at some academic conference. Sir, his weapons officer whispered, should we prepare to attack? We could destroy her ship before she reports back to Earth. The admiral turned to look at his subordinate. The young officer still believed they could solve this problem with violence. He did not understand what they were really facing, and then what? Kethver asked quietly. Dr. Chen mentioned that she needs to return home for her daughter's school. Play. When she fails to arrive, what do you think will happen? The weapons officer looked uncertain. Earth will send search parties. Earth will wonder why their scientists disappeared while investigating a new species, Kethver explained. They will send proper military vessels to find out what happened. And when they discover that we destroyed a peaceful research ship, they will call upon their 200 allied species for assistance. The bridge fell silent as his crew began to understand. They had thought they were facing one small research vessel. In reality, they were balanced on the edge of a war with the largest alliance in galactic history. Dr. Chen's voice came through the speakers again. Admiral, I'm sorry to bother you, but I really should start heading home soon. My daughter's play is tomorrow evening, and I promised I wouldn't miss it. She's playing a tree in the school forest scene, and she's been practicing her lines for weeks. Kethver closed his 3 eyes and tried to process what he was hearing. This human was ending their first contact session because she had to attend a children's theater performance. She was treating a meeting with the most feared ship in Zephyrian space as a minor scheduling conflict. Dr. Chen, he said slowly, before you leave, I must ask you something. Are you not concerned that we might follow you back to Earth? The human scientist looked genuinely surprised by the question. Follow me? Why would you want to do that? I mean, you're certainly welcome to visit Earth if you're interested. We love having guests from other species. Though you should probably contact our diplomatic corps first to arrange proper accommodations. She paused thoughtfully. Actually, now that I think about it, there's a big xenobiology conference on Mars next month. If you're interested in cultural exchange, that would be a perfect opportunity to meet researchers from dozens of different species. Kethver felt his remaining confidence crumble completely. Dr. Chen was inviting him to a scientific conference. She was treating the possibility of his arrival at Earth not as an invasion threat, but as a social opportunity.
Dr. Chen,
he said desperately, do you understand that we could destroy your entire world? The human looked at him with what appeared to be genuine concern. Admiral, are you feeling all right? I've been asking very strange questions about attacking people and destroying planets. That's not normal behavior for most species. She leaned forward with the expression of someone trying to help a confused friend. If your people are having problems with aggressive tendencies, there are excellent therapists who specialize in interspecies psychology. The Andromedan Institute has done wonderful work helping civilizations transition away from conquest-based cultures. Kethver stared at her in complete shock. This human thought he needed therapy. She was offering to help the Zephyrian hegemony overcome their violent nature through professional counseling. We do not need therapy, he said weakly. Of course not, Dr. Chen agreed quickly. I didn't mean to imply anything was wrong with your species. It's just that some cultures go through aggressive phases during their development. It's perfectly normal. The important thing is recognizing when it's time to move toward more cooperative approaches. The admiral realized that he was listening to the death of his empire. It's not death through conquest or destruction, but death through obsolescence. The humans and their allies had moved beyond the need for conquest and fear. They had built something better, and they were offering to share it with anyone willing to change. Dr. Chen, he said quietly, what if a species refused to change? What if they continued to attack and conquer other worlds? The human's expression grew sad. That would be very unfortunate. We'd try diplomacy first, of course. Economic sanctions if necessary. If they still refuse to stop harming others, the Council would eventually have to intervene militarily. She sighed deeply. It's happened a few times in the past. Usually the aggressive species realizes they're outnumbered and agrees to negotiate. Sometimes they retreat to isolated systems where they can't hurt anyone else. In the worst cases, Dr. Chen did not finish the sentence, but Kethfer understood. Species that refused to abandon conquest simply disappeared from the galaxy, not through genocide, but through complete isolation or forced reformation. Admiral Dr. Chen said gently, "I hope your people will consider joining the galactic community peacefully. You obviously have impressive technology and organizational skills. With the right approach, the Zephyrian hegemony could become a respected member of the Council within a few decades." Kethfer felt something break inside him. This human was offering his people a path to survival and prosperity. All they had to do was abandon everything they had built their identity around. "I must return to my fleet," he said finally. Cheerfully, "Thank you so much for this opportunity. I've learned more about galactic civilization today than I have in years of research. I hope we can continue our discussions in the future." She paused and smiled warmly. "Oh, and Admiral, if you do decide to visit Earth, please let me know. I'd love to introduce you to my daughter. She's very interested in meeting aliens, and I think she'd find your species fascinating." The communication ended, leaving Kethfer alone with his thoughts and his terrified crew. The human scientist had offered to introduce him to her child. She trusted him enough to bring him into her family home. She believed that even a Zephyrian admiral could be reformed into someone safe enough to meet a little girl who played trees in school performances. "Set course away from this system," Kethfer ordered quietly. "Maximum speed." "Sir?" his navigation officer asked. "Where are we going?" The admiral looked at the stars ahead, thinking about Dr. Chen and her daughter, and the vast alliance of species that had somehow built peace across hundreds of worlds. "Home," he said finally. "We're going home to write a very different kind of report." As the Void Reaper turned away from Earth's solar system, Kethfer began composing his message to the Hegemony High Command. He would tell them that Earth was unsuitable for conquest due to advanced defensive capabilities. He would not mention that those defenses included the moral certainty of a scientist who invited potential enemies to children's theater performances. Some truths were too dangerous to share. Even with his own people, Dr. Chen's research ship continued its journey back to Earth, carrying data about a new species and stories about the most polite invasion fleet anyone had ever encountered. She was already planning her presentation for the Xenobiology conference, excited to share her discoveries about Zephyrian culture and technology. She never realized that she had single-handedly prevented a galactic war simply by treating everyone she met with curiosity, kindness, and the absolute confidence that peaceful solutions were always possible.